All right, looks
Live
like we're
streaming
live
is on.
streaming.
Stream it up.
Cool. I had to type that whole string in. I usually like to copy and paste, but so I'll give us another minute before we kick this off, since our executive committee meeting just wrapped up.
Hey, Chris.
Hey, what's up?
This is Michelle. Are you speaking today because I'm supposed to be your evaluator?
Oh, yes, I did. I just emailed the speech title, but I forgot to email the evaluation form.
So yes, the title goes to who's the?
I emailed that to Earl.
Okay, and then
Yeah, I got it.
Email me the evaluation form, or I can just use a generic one that I have.
I'm just gonna email you the generic one anyways. Do you want it?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, folks, looks like we're 4 minutes late. I still see some muted screens and what have you. But let's go ahead and get started. Let's kick this off. I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully this works. All right, something like that. Is that working?
Yes.
All right, cool. Well, let's do this. Let's go ahead and stand and do our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
To the flag
of the United
of the
States
United States of America.
and to the republic for which it
It
stands,
stands
one
One
nation,
nation,
one nation,
under God,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty
and justice for all.
and justice for all.
Thank you, and over to you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Aaron. Welcome, everybody, to another great meeting. It's a little rainy outside, but that's okay. We're inside. So you can't use the weather anymore necessarily as an excuse for why you can't come to a meeting unless your connection happens to be bad because of it. We have a guest today, so I'd like to recognize Miss Linda Kennedy, immediate past district director or district director of District 66. Welcome. Okay, couple things for the officers primarily, but this goes for everybody if you're interested in what officers do, what all is involved. We're having officer training this week and next week. You should have gotten a link from Maggie Gahagan, who is the program quality director. So if you're interested, please make plans. Also, you may have seen that the International Toastmasters Convention is going to be virtual this year. They sent out a link to register. I'm assuming they're going to limit the number of people who are able to attend. So I would advise registering, if anything, just to see the World Championship of Public Speaking, because some of those speakers are really, really amazing. And I believe that's all I had. So now I will hand it off to the Toastmaster of the day, me. Welcome, me. Thank you. So today I'd like to introduce all the roles for everyone speaking today. First up, we have the Topics Master, Brandon.
Hey, here I am. All right. Thanks very much, Mr. General Evaluator, Toastmasters and fellow guests, fellow Toastmasters and guests. Oh my goodness. The role of the Topics Master is to facilitate table topics where guests and members will have the opportunity to practice their impromptu speaking. I'll introduce the topic and call on speakers or ask for volunteers who will be given between 1 and 2 minutes to speak on that subject. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Brandon. And now we'll move on to the General Evaluator. And for today, that'll be Jess.
Good morning, fellow Toastmasters and guests, Mr. President. As the General Evaluator, I will be introducing the other evaluators. I will be doing an overall evaluation of how the meeting went and giving thoughts on variables such as timeliness, preparedness, etc. So the first person that I will be introducing, actually, give me just a second. Okay, is going to be the grammarian wordmaster, Aaron.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator. Fellow Toastmasters, as the grammarian, it is my responsibility to pay close attention to all speakers, listening carefully to their language usage. I'll take note of any improper language, which I don't expect to hear, as well as any outstanding words, quotes, or sayings or thoughts, which I will definitely pay attention to. As the grammarian, it is also my duty to introduce the word of the day, which I struggled with this morning. But for today's meeting, I have chose the word perfunctory, which means something done without much care or attention. And as an example, the customer made a perfunctory review of the sales agreement before he signed it. Each speaker is encouraged to incorporate the word of the day while speaking in this venue. And at the end of the meeting, I will be called up and provide the grammarian's report. Thank you, Madam General Evaluator.
Fantastic. Thank you, Aaron. The next person I'm going to introduce is going to be our counter, Listen Up, who is going to, is Jerry here this morning? No? Okay. So anybody want to step up and be our backup counter, Listen Up this morning?
I can. Ray.
Oh, all right. All right, Miss Ray. All right, so would you like to talk about the counter listen up functions for a moment?
Counter counts all those verbal pauses that we use when we're trying to think of our next word. Oh, some, you know, there's a variety. As Listen Up, I'm going to be listening for things that are particularly clever or interesting or thought-provoking. And then I'm going to quiz you on it. See if you were really listening. Thank you, Madam General Evaluator.
Fantastic. Thank you, Miss Ray. Thanks for stepping up. So the next person that I'll introduce is going to be our timer for today, who is Miss Kittima.
morning. Good morning, fellow Toastmasters and guests. Today I will be the timer and I'll be timing the speakers' table topics, formal speeches, and evaluations. I will alert each speaker as to the time they have left. I'll be using the green card, the yellow card, and the red card, which denotes specific time remaining. For table topics, speakers, they should limit their remarks to no more than 2 minutes. At 1 minute, I'll raise the green card. At 1 minute and 30 seconds, I'll raise the yellow card. And at 2 minutes, I'll raise the red card. For icebreaker speeches, 4 to 6 minutes. For most other speeches, to be 5 to 7 minutes. And for evaluations, 2 to 3 minutes. Thank you, Madam General Evaluator.
Fantastic. Sorry about that. There's a little bit of a lag on my screen, so it takes a minute to unmute here. The last person that I'll introduce here is going to be our vote counter for today, which will be Tyler.
Hello, and thank you, Madam General Evaluator. Today, in a perfunctory manner, I will be sending out the forms for you to vote on who was the best speaker, who was the best table topic speaker, and who was the best evaluator. You will get that form in your email and be able to submit it just before the end of the meeting. I will tabulate the votes and present the winners at the end of the meeting. Back to you, Jess.
Fantastic. So everybody has a pretty important role here for today's meeting, and we all have a clear idea of what everybody is here for and what purpose they serve. So next, it is my pleasure to introduce our Toastmaster of the day, who will introduce all of our speakers. Our fearless leader and president, Mr. Earl. Woo!
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator. So our first speaker today is Aaron. Oh, where'd he go? Okay. He's on the presentation mastery path, and this is project number 3, researching and presenting. The title of his speech is, "We're in it together." The speech time is 5 to 7 minutes. In this speech, he will give a brief history on human adaptability, how it applies today, and ways to improve our ability to adapt. Aaron.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Greetings, fellow Toastmasters. So this is my perfunctory speech. I don't know how I let 2 weeks get away from me, but I did. So I was able to, jumble something together. And hopefully it's useful. So I chose this idea. I just felt that it was fitting for our current environment. We're looking at each other in these little boxes on our screen. Looks like in our kitchens and our living rooms and our makeshift home offices. When we didn't have to, we could easily have thrown in the towel and said, "No, I don't want to do this. I can't." Turned our backs and walked away from it. But we didn't. We chose to adapt, to be here, so we could continue to learn, to improve ourselves, and to grow. Because our ability to adapt has been vital to the advancement of us as a human species. Over the course of many thousands of years, our environment, particularly our ever-changing climate, influenced our ability to be adaptive. And the idea that over a relatively short period of time, our changing environmental landscape increased our capacity for adaptive behavior. According to Rick Potts, a director at the Smithsonian Museum of Natural History, we evolved to have social minds where we could share information, to develop and pass on knowledge, giving us a way to adapt to new situations, ultimately allowing us to grow from 1 billion people in 1800 to nearly 8 billion people today. So understanding where our ability to be adaptable comes from, let's look at how it can be applied today. Dealing with change. A very common myth about dealing with unwanted change is that we need to talk about our fear and our anger and our frustrations. In a study published in the book Foundations of Health Psychology, research shows that actively and repeatedly broadcasting our negative emotions hinders our natural adaptation process. And stress. When we feel stressed, we should recognize what that stress is trying to help us accomplish. Stress can be useful if we allow it to be. According to Stanford psychologist Kelly McGonigal, and her book, The Upside of Stress, our reaction to stress is more impactful on our health and our success than the stress itself. Remember, stress is there to help us. So now that we've looked at a couple of ways how our adaptation applies to us in this current social environment, let's look at some ways that we can actually improve our ability to adapt. According to Charles Darwin, it's not the strongest of a species that survives, nor the most intelligent. It's the one that's most adaptable to change. So what can we do? We can change our thought process. So we all know that change can be scary, but if we embrace it, we give ourselves the opportunity to learn, to improve, and to grow. We can take risk. Risk taking is a key component to improving our adaptability. And we should embrace learning. Those that like to stay current and strive to continue to learn tend to be more adaptable. And I believe these strategies were useful for me. It brought me to Toastmasters, and it kept me here in this current environmental situation that we find ourselves in. Adaptation is a main component in our history and the development of humans, and plays a starring role in our world today. Understanding where our ability to adapt comes from and how we can use it to improve ourselves can serve us well as we navigate these uncertain times. Thank you.
Great speech, Aaron. I learned something. It's definitely I've always felt that that was one of my strengths, and that's what I look for when I hire people is their adaptability. But that's not only something that is applicable in your professional life, it's definitely applicable in your personal life. You'll find that you're going to have a lot of trouble if you're not able to adapt to the situation. So your speech was definitely relevant. So our next speaker is Sean. He's on the presentation mastery path. This is his second speech. The speech is entitled The Benefits of Working from Home. Sean, take it away.
Thanks, Earl. Similar to Aaron, I'm going to present a different angle on adaptation. The benefits of working from home. With the current pandemic, for those of us fortunate enough to be working right now, telework has become the new normal. As a graphic designer in advertising, I've always thought my position would be well suited for telework, although the company I work for was not always on board. This all changed in mid-March when the stay-at-home order began. It was a scramble for the department to put together an emergency plan to keep production going for a period of time that no one had specifics on. A number of issues had to be ironed out in order to become fully operational remotely. All laptops would need to be connected to VPN in order to access the company server. Video conference platforms needed to be implemented. And luckily, we had just switched to a digital proofing process in order for my layouts to be evaluated remotely. This allowed me to, of course, to turn in all of my work remotely. After a few months of fine tuning, we came out on the other end with a fully functional telework operation, and I couldn't be happier about it. Even though it's temporary, I have my fingers crossed that the option of telework could become permanent. Here are a few benefits that I've discovered since this has begun. This pandemic has forced innovation in many aspects of life as we know it, especially in the workplace. Company-wise, although we have a ways to go, communication has improved by forcing information to become more centralized for easier access remotely. Video conferences have replaced meetings, and we also abruptly shifted much of our printed communication to be online for the customer. At home, I set up my physical working environment to my liking. I bought a stand-up desk and I rearranged the room to accommodate my workspace. I now have that spacious office window that I've always wanted. I also fine-tuned my workflow to benefit both environments. I use personal reminders such as the Echo Dot to notify me of various meetings and tasks. And I even discovered that my monitor can display both my personal and my work laptops simultaneously when necessary. One of the main benefits, though, is work-life balance. When the workplace gets overwhelming, home life can feel like an afterthought. Working from home can greatly improve this situation. Aside from being able to spend more time outside and away from the office, perhaps with your family, I generally eat better, I have more time to cook, I no longer have to rush meals and can avoid unhealthy fast foods. Breakfast is no longer neglected due to time restraints. I try to work out every other day during my lunch break, and this forces me to a set time window of roughly an hour, and it helps to eliminate procrastination. I have complete control over my physical environment. I set the AC to whatever I want, and yes, shoes and shirts are optional. I have no commute. I roll out of bed, I log in, and I take my time handling morning routines while keeping an eye on anything that's pressing. While the company still has complete access to me during work hours, I still feel it's a better trade-off than being tied to the office building. Lastly, being away from the office optimizes efficiency, and we have less office politics, less interruptions, and less meetings. So there you have it. Forced innovation, work-life balance, and optimized efficiency are just a few of the benefits of working remotely. Other companies such as Facebook and Twitter have already made the call to announce permanent or long-term remote work policies. Countless other organizations, including Toastmasters, have also adapted to the new normal. The circumstances surrounding this could not be worse. However, adversity pushes us beyond our limitations, and this situation is no exception. Thank you.
Great job, Sean.
Thanks.
Your speech was very, very relevant to what's going on today. I went home. They told me to go home in the middle of March, and I have not been back to the office since. It's been difficult for me adjusting to this mainly because my family is here as well. And I love my family, but I'm really, really tired of them.
I could imagine.
So our next speaker is Chris. He's on the innovative planning path, and his speech is entitled 50% Odd. What if I told you there was a 50% chance of a life-changing event for you this year? Take it away, Chris.
Good morning, all. What if I told you there was a 50% chance that a negative event could impact your life this year? Would you take action to mitigate those odds? I know I would. What if I could told you that you could reduce these odds to almost 0%? And what if I told you one of these events is just around the corner? What am I talking about? I'm talking about tropical weather. Since 2003, Virginia has logged 9 events with tropical weather. 6 of these were full-blown hurricanes. Luckily, we've been able to keep out of the way and not be in a direct hit. But we may not be so lucky. With the current storm coming our way, once again, it's cutting through South Carolina, it looks like first. So once again, we're getting some saving grace. But one of these days we won't. So what we need to talk about today is getting hurricane ready. So the first thing you need to do to get hurricane ready is to have 2 plans, an evacuation plan and a staying plan. And these plans, of course, every storm is different, but these plans should contain some general guidelines for what actions you're going to take. For example, you may decide for a Category 3 hurricane, there's no way you're staying here, you're leaving. And if you do decide to leave, where will you stay? What hotel will you stay at if it's a hotel, or you stay with friends and family? And lastly, if you have an animal, where will you, does the hotel accommodate pets? If you decide to stay, there's a whole another host of issues to deal with, and some of them are interlapping. For instance, some of you may have flood insurance. If you don't have flood insurance, but you're in a flood-prone zone, that may be something, if you're risk-adverse, that you would look into. There's several different ways you can find out if your house is located in a flood zone. One of them is the FEMA website. You can just go in there and type in your address, and it'll provide you your annualized percent chance of flooding. For most of the areas around here, it's going to be about 0.2, which is obviously pretty low. But for other areas near the coast, you may already be required, but you may find that you're more at risk than you previously thought. Another way you can look at this, and this is a more detailed way, is through the city flood zone maps. Their maps are a little more detailed, and they provide this information as well. So either of those sources is adequate. You may also want to look at your homeowner's insurance. For instance, you may have upgraded your kitchen. Do you have pictures of your upgraded kitchen? Do you have, does your current recovery costs include these new appliances? If not, that may be something you wish to update as well. Another item you want to look at is your critical documents. Many of us have birth certificates, social security cards, and other vital information that we keep in either a locker or a safe or something of that nature. These are obviously documents we don't want to scan, but we all have them all in one central location. Remember, the goal here is that if a hurricane comes, we should be able to evacuate the area. Really, you should have all your stuff ready to go in a few hours. So you should just be able to pick it up and go. Other options for documents, of course, include cloud services or just a simple thumb drive to keep your documents on. Either way, you're not going to have time to scan everything when the hurricanes are already here. It's too late at that point. At that point, you just have to throw it in your truck or car and get on your way. Lastly, if you're staying, the most important item you could have is a generator. If you're staying and you don't have a generator, you may find yourself very uncomfortable. And if you're like me, you just looked at generators this weekend because you were too late to get to it beforehand, and you notice that they're already sold out. So once that blimp shows up on the map, it's too late. And buying a generator isn't as simple as just going to Home Depot and picking up the first one you see. In fact, there's a lot of different options. First thing you have to determine is your load. What kind of electrical load will you have on the generator? Are you just looking for a bare bones version? For instance, just a refrigerator and maybe a radio? Or are you looking to power your whole house? If you're powering your whole house, maybe you consider an interlock where you tie it into your breaker box. Of course, if you're sizing for a whole house, the generator is going to be much pricier. The second thing you need to think about with the generator is what fuel source will you be using. The 3 main options are gasoline, propane, or natural gas. Either way, if you choose any of these options, you have to make sure you have adequate fuel. Some of the issues associated with these, of course, include gasoline. A generator will run about a gallon an hour. So you can imagine if you're out of power for 5 days, you're going to need much more than even 40 gallons. Do you really want to be storing 40 gallons of gasoline outside in your shed, a highly flammable substance? And do you even have a 40-gallon tank? Many people these days are switching to propane because most of us have propane grills, so you can just tie a bottle in. And of course, you'll cycle through those bottles throughout the year. There's no expiration date really on propane, and it's obviously much cleaner than gasoline and storage and everything of that nature. And of course, if you're evaluating your electrical load, also consider batteries. Do you even know what size battery each appliance that you use requires, and do you have enough batteries ready to go? So as we come around to this hurricane coming up, not a hurricane for us, it'll be a tropical storm, please take some steps to ensure that you're ready for the tropical weather, and that we're a little too late this time, but next time we are more prepared in case we do get a direct hit. Thank you.
Great job, Chris. That's definitely relevant for this area. I've been through many, many hurricanes, as have most of you, I'm sure. And luckily, aside from having my gutter fall down because a tree fell on it, I've been lucky. Not had any major damage. So I did have a friend whose house was condemned because a tree fell right in the middle of it and essentially cleaved it in half. But it's definitely something to think about as we enter hurricanes, or as the hurricane start rolling around. Okay, so our final speaker today is Tyler. He's on the persuasive influence path. This is project number 2, social speeches. His speech title is "That's My Final Answer." Take it away, Tyler.
Also, it's 3 to 4 minutes. Keep that in mind. Kidema.
Sorry about that. 3 to 4 minutes, Kidema.
Yeah. Thank you, Toastmaster Earl. Thank you, fellow Toastmasters and guests, for being here today. Which of these U.S. presidents appeared on the television series Laugh-In? Was it A, Lyndon Johnson, B, Richard Nixon, C, Jimmy Carter, or D, Gerald Ford?
Richard Nixon.
Richard Nixon. Well, John, is that your final answer?
Yes.
You just won $1 million and a trip to Paris. This was the final question, winning John Carpenter $1 million on November 19th, 1999. This was on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? And the host, of course, was the famous and great Regis Philbin. He was one of our most beloved American hosts and figures, starting off in the early 60s as a co-host on the popular Joey Bishop show. Since then, he has been a figure in talk shows such as Live with Regis and Kathy Lee, game shows such as The Neighbors, and of course, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? He's known for his great positive personality. He's always on the positive sides of things, even when introducing The Undertaker, the WWE champion known for his gruesome looks and macabre personality. They were like fire and ice playing together because Regis was so positive. He was a great character that represented our American values of positivity, great attitudes, and success. One thing he was also known for was his audience interaction. When he first got started, he didn't have the fancy, expensive writers like he did for Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. He adopted a style of speaking which was interacting with the audience, asking them questions similar to how we do here at Toastmasters. Watching some of his early work is a great lesson for us and a way which we can improve ourselves and become better public speakers like Regis Philbin. One thing not a lot of people know about him is that he was also in the United States Navy. I know a lot of us are Navy adjacent in this club, and it's interesting to know that he was a sailor just like many of us are. Regis Philbin was such a popular and lasting figure that he actually won the Guinness World Record for most hours on television. It was quite shocking. He had over 15,000 hours in television, which is just insane. But of course, he had been doing this for 40, 50, 60 years almost. And I just wanted to take this time to recognize what a great impact he had on our lives. And his legacy will carry on far after this final answer of his. Thank you very much, fellow Toastmasters.
Great job, Tyler. I was saddened to hear about Regis Philbin. I thought I've always enjoyed his personality. He's very lively. So he will be missed. Now, typically this is the part where we take a break. So I need a quick break if everyone's cool with that. So if we could meet back here, say at 10 till, is that good? Yep. All right. See you in 10 minutes.
Hey, just a reminder, can everybody mute their computers?